Okay, and I need to share this with you so you can share with the group.
I think you should share with the group so you can use the everyone tag.
You can't.
I already did today.
Well, I'm pretty sure it can only be used once per group.
The last time we played with it, you were able to. We'll see.
We shall find out. Okay.
You're live, right?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay.
We've been live.
Thought so.
Hello, Judy and Heather. How are you guys? Wow, you guys found it before I even really released it to the public.
For us.
Great job. You win. You win bonus points. How's everybody doing? Welcome to NAMA. We'll start with news like we normally do, and then we'll go to our questions. Alert. So news. Tris got her NW2 title.
She did, with third place overall.
Third place overall at a
Very
tricky
exciting.
trial. Only 6 titles. We're very proud of her. And she also got her BH this last weekend with me, which is not Nosework news, but still, I'm very proud of her.
She's been very busy.
She's been a good girl, and we're working her very hard. She gets no rest. What else do we have news-wise?
Well, you've got all kinds of travel coming up.
Yes.
Got a workshop in Cincinnati this weekend.
Yep. I think they're all full. I had a day of private lessons. I think those are all full.
Right. Then you've got something coming up in Pittsburgh the first weekend in December, which I saw they're auditing spots.
They're auditing spots, and there may be private lesson spots if you contact the host.
Your topic is for Pittsburgh?
Trial recovery and something else.
Let's see. Then you're going to be in California.
But maybe the trial from hell. Maybe.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to California. I just sent the California private lesson form to a couple people. If you want to be on that list, send me a message and I'll include you in it. I'm going to have some workshops and some private lessons to do out there, but I'm going to be spending a lot of the time training horses.
And then what else do we have going on?
Lots.
Yep, you're going to be.
You just put the schedules on our website for premium members. So if you're a premium member and you have early access, now's your chance. It went out.
And if you didn't get it for some reason, let me know. Maybe your email's blocking it or something.
And if you don't have premium membership, when will it be released?
Let me look at the calendar. Probably on Friday.
So likely on Friday, it'll go out to the general public.
And then it'll be on our Facebook group and page.
Everywhere we normally post it.
And all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and announce next month's NAMA date.
That's not a bad idea.
That is going to be the 29th of December.
29th of December.
Yeah, it'll nearly be the new year.
Yes. Excellent.
Okay. And, well, I'll wait to announce that.
Okay.
In the group. When I make a decision.
Cool.
Okay, so shall we get right into questions?
Let's do it.
A bunch of interesting ones.
Let's do it.
Okay, so our first question is from a recent elite trial.
Okay.
Gene Richardson was the CO.
Okay.
And the question asker sent the debrief, which we might want to watch. But what happened is that a number of dogs into the search, like 7 or 8 dogs into the search maybe, all these dogs started hard falsing on this wall, like all up and down this one wall.
Okay.
So the judge finally kind of takes a look over there and she calls Gene. And what do they find? Several bottles, large bottles of clove oil. sitting on the windowsill.
What are the chances of that?
Yes, and it's a music room. Like, what are they doing with clove oil? And it wasn't just clove; there were several other essential oils up there too. And the dog in white had shown no interest at all. And but when Jean came back to check it out, she said you could really smell it because the sun had started shining on that window. So what she ended up doing was giving everybody full points and full time, and that was the fairest thing she could come up with.
Okay.
And so the question asker says, I would love your guys' thoughts on this wacky scenario in the debrief below and how you think the massive odor bomb in a sunny window may have affected the dogs. We ran the search before the oils were discovered. Do you think higher level AKC dogs would have had any problems in here being used to super high odor concentrations and lots of hides in detective?
It wasn't a hide. So what do you mean by having problems? The problem would be if they notice it.
Right, which once the sun was out and it was like enough that people were smelling like how.
Did you want us to watch the debrief?
Yeah, we can do that. You want to open it on yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to send it to me?
Well, it's in the live stream. Don't you have the live stream?
No, document? I don't have it open.
Okay, I'll send it to you then. I think that's very different than just being hides, AKC hides set out. So I don't have any idea how dogs of different, I would imagine training and personality and all that has something to do with how the dogs would respond. But I would expect almost any dog to respond as if there's just like a lot of odor molecules in the air.
Okay, let's see. Well, it's an arts and crafts room, not a music room.
No, the other side.
Okay. Well, I guess we don't. Do we want to skip to the end where she talks about that specific problem?
We can.
Okay.
So there were 3 rooms in this area.
You already watched it?
I did. And there was a room with nothing in it, and then there was the music room. So you can go ahead to the music room, and then we might want to come back to talk about the part later.
That was a lot of clothes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I get the general idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, what's the question?
So the question is, our thoughts on how it may have affected the dogs, and then do you think that AKC dogs who are used to very high odor concentrations and lots of hides would have had any different any problems?
I think questions like this, it's like I don't 100% know why you're asking me. We know how it affected the dogs. You got false alerts. That's how it, like, our speculation.
But like, if these are NACW dogs, I mean,
do you think AKC dogs would have done anything different?
Right. I think that's the question.
I doubt it. I doubt it. It depends on the level of training. It depends on other conditions. I have no reason to believe one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect any dog to respond to that if it was available to them. What you might see different with different training is how well they responded to the set hides that were in there. Did they have a harder time telling you about the hide across the room on the tubes? because of this. That I don't know. I don't know.
It would be interesting to see some of the videos of dogs,
Yeah.
and it would have been interesting for them to, like, if they had taken that wall out of play. But the problem's still there. There's still the oil and all this, but they say don't call any alerts on this wall. There's clove oil up there. The other question, which may be a more controversial or interesting one, is do you pay that?
Right. What do you do with that?
Do you pay it or do you ignore it? What do you do?
I think it would partially depend on what my dog was doing.
Okay, she alerted. She gives a full-on normal alert. What do you do?
I would be. It's really hard to say because part of me is tempted that like this is one trial scenario, probably never going to happen again. Do I just lower her frustration by paying her and move on?
Okay, so you pay her.
Potentially.
Potentially. What are the situations where you don't pay her?
That's not what I've exactly trained for source for trial. And this is very different than like drug and explosive situations. You know, like I've trained her within a threshold of what?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I don't understand.
Like trials have, if for our purposes, have a fairly tight set of thresholds, odor thresholds.
Okay.
So we're not running into that, you know, like container that has, you know, like 100 kilos of cocaine. Or
I feel like we show our students and our dogs odor bombs all the time, though. Like we'll regularly take the whole jar, put it out there.
They're not 10 bottles of clove. They're a jar of Q-tips with, you know, maybe a dropper full of oil, or a couple.
I think it's the lower threshold and the upper threshold are not equivalent in my mind. So we do train our dogs to ignore a certain quantity lower than what we want. Mm-hmm. But above that, I don't feel like we actually train at all to ignore higher quantities.
We haven't. Now we do.
So I would expect my dog to alert on it.
I would expect my dog to probably alert on it. Now my dog does not alert on my odor kit. Which
we can debate whether that's a higher or lower threshold.
Somewhat differently. I mean, you know, you open it, it smells like odor. They were in this room, it smelled like odor.
So you don't pay your odor kit.
I don't pay my odor.
But you'd be more tempted to pay this. Why?
Because I'm in trial trying to get points for.
Okay, what if it's a workshop?
And
your dog alerts? No, you're not the clinician. You're the participant. And you go there and your dog alerts there and they're like, oh, the dog's falsing. And then you look up there, oh, there's like 5 bottles of clove oil. This is a workshop. What do you do?
I'd probably just pay her and move on.
You'd pay her. Okay. Interesting.
What about you?
I think I wouldn't pay. I don't think I'd pay my dogs. I don't actually know if these clove oils are the type of clove that we're using in trial.
Well, you can read on a couple.
I don't want to also pair, like, what is my dog actually get? There's like a lot of different oils up there. What is my dog going to latch onto as a learning experience?
Right.
So I have a feeling.
And they're not on Q-tips and they're not in a scent vessel. So I see a good argument for, you know, not.
I would say I'm not worried that the not paying the dog once is going to hurt them. So I would probably not pay them and just leave it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what my gut would tell me in the moment. You know, I was in a clinic type scenario once where the clinician had put they had hung their odor kit on, say, a tree. It wasn't exactly a tree, but, you know, and it was a little bit cracked open and they said, I want you to let your dogs work this as high because I don't have anywhere else to put my odor kit. And I kind of questioned it a little bit because I have taught my dog not to alert on odor kits. And she said, oh, just do it and see what happens. Like, I don't think she's going to treat it like an odor kit. And I could tell that Icy caught it and then was not at all sure what to do about working it. And it ended up making me uncomfortable that I paid it because of the way my dog responded to it. That, like, she didn't think it was a real hide. But the clinician really wanted me to pay it. So, you know.
I don't know why that should make you uncomfortable. That's actual odor your dog responded to. And there's not going to be an odor kit in your trial.
No,
so why does it matter?
Because my dog was like, this isn't the hide.
I feel different about an odor kit that's open versus closed. Because I really like the odor kits we have, at least, are actually sealed. So the odor, I think, once it's closed is not the same. But yeah. Okay, so what else can we answer about this question or that we can go into?
I think related to earlier in this search area, so we can go back to that part. How would you train contained inaccessible where the hide is at the point of convergence between two accessible hides? So if you can rewind to the beginning of the video. She's seen this challenge come up in a few trials, wondering how dogs learn to differentiate that it's an inaccessible hide versus the point of trapping or converging.
Okay. Let me share the screen again. Okay, you want the beginning?
Almost, yeah. Go maybe. Okay. Okay, that's all we need to look at.
Okay, none of those were inaccessible.
She called the one in the cart inaccessible in the cabinet right there.
She did. I'll rewind it. I didn't hear that. Inside the cupboard. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so that one's inaccessible and the other two. So I think again, like we don't need to make it too complicated. First, you got to make sure your dog can do all three of those hides as singles, which I think people should not take for granted because I think people think their dogs are way more solid than they often are on single hides.
Yeah, like if that inaccessible hide would be hard for your dog by itself.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
it will be
not
very
with you
hard.
doing your shoulder work and keeping them in the area, right? Like, they should just be nailing that hide all by themselves with no handler help.
Yeah.
And then all of the information you need to know how to set this up is actually in our Mastering Multiple Hides course. So I highly recommend you look that up. But you just start layering problems together. You add the other hide, you add this hide, you add a distraction. Instead of having the inaccessible and two hides, have the inaccessible and two distractions where those hides would be. The dog is learning the same process about how to focus on a hide problem in the midst of a distraction. And when there's actually those distractions are actually hides, when they're working a hide, they are distractions. So the dog has to stay focused.
Yeah. And can the dog do all three of these when they're all accessible? And can you do each one, like you said, can you do these two together and then those two together, the outer ones together, all three? I really, really like going through this process, initially picking them up. So the dog gets to totally focus on the new one as they go, hopefully.
Yes.
I think that's very helpful.
And you need to have mastered the 2 hide and the 3 hide drill before you do something like this. Like your dog, when you tell the dog to leave a hide, they need to understand in certain contexts to leave and not come back.
But also be so focused right from that hide that they're not going to skip anything that's nearby. Now, she's also specifically asking, how do they learn to differentiate between a hide that's actually inaccessible in there versus those other 2 hides are pooling? They're converging and pooling into an
experience.
Like that.
This is not hard for a dog, but you have to make them very connected to source. It's not hard for a dog to understand that there's a rabbit here and their scent is pooling over here, and the dog, because the dog wants the rabbit, the dog ignores the pool. But because we don't teach the dog to want the rabbit, in this case the hide, we don't teach them to want that. A lot of dogs are very content false alerting here because they don't want the hide. They want the treat from your treat pouch. And so if you can get the dog connected to the source, then you don't have problems with pooling odor. And they can absolutely differentiate. My dogs can all differentiate that in hunting situations.
Yeah. And I think, you want to try to set up those different pictures. So set it up so that you have 2 hides that you are trying to get to pool on another object, and then do it where there's actually an inaccessible hide. And I think, I've had setups like this in trial, or even where there were 2 inaccessible and 1 or 2 accessible. And, I think the dog can be very clear on it if they are moving at the right pace for themselves and they're being very careful and detailed in their hunting. Now, if they're going too fast for themselves, this sort of thing can be very difficult. And I would also, while I'm working on 1 accessible, 1 inaccessible, I would do a lot of opening up the inaccessible and letting the dog get to source.
I'm personally getting to a point where I think in some ways putting hides on seams that are accessible might almost be better practice than putting them in the actual inaccessible.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so instead of putting it in the cabinet, put it on the seam of the cabinet where you want your dog's nose to end up. And you just use a lower threshold hide there, but the dog won't have the same conflict of it being inaccessible and being rewarded for fringing, which is what you do when you do inaccessible hides. And instead, their nose will start being drawn to those places because there's likely to be hides there.
Well, and I like to work on cabinets as if they were boxes, or drawers as well. So you're making that seam smaller and smaller and smaller, and really pulling them into those seams. And I do often, even if I do put the hide inside, I smash it right up against that seam. And generally speaking, if the dog is being careful and understands this sort of idea, they will work it all the way to that seam.
Yes.
Less so sometimes if it's been out for hours and hours and hours because the whole thing is so full of odor. But often you can, whether you put it right in the seam or right behind the seam, you can often get it where the dog's like, it's right there, and they really want to drive into that seam.
But I think a lot of dogs feel like they have to put out more work for inaccessibles than accessibles because we're stingy and we want them to show us the whole picture, so to speak. So doing that kind of an inaccessible hide with distractions all around, bowls of food, toys, and stuff like that, and asking the dog to put out that work in that context and then paying them extra heavily once they do find it. I think that's a really important step, personally.
Yeah, and I also think setting a lot of hides where you have convergence points that, having nothing to do with inaccessible, but just where you have these convergence points that are pooling, and making sure the dog really understands that just because it's extra noticeable or interesting because it's a convergence point does not mean anything.
Yeah.
Because I've had a lot of falses in trial that were at, from what I could tell, were at convergence points, and that's a sad thing. Okay, so I don't know if I totally addressed your first question, but if you have any,
let us know with follow-ups.
Clarifying, let us know, and of course with the second question too. Okay, so we're going to go on. Currently attempting NW2, and the distractors and containers is one of the hard things. Yes. Do you have a favorite training strategy for this? I have been studying my dog's response to odor versus distractor and thought I knew the difference, but this past weekend I made the wrong call. I know we could use more odor obedience. It's possible I haven't been rewarding enthusiastically enough, so I've been focusing on a huge party each time we find odor in all searches, not just containers. When my dog sniffs a distractor, how do I ignore that without leading her to the next box? Playing around with the box is a type of reward in itself, isn't it? Current strategy is to just wait her out. Maybe we just need more miles. I know we need more miles. Would appreciate hearing y'all's musings on what activities might support us as we gain those miles.
Yeah, I've been working on the Mastering Distractors course for the last couple months, and hopefully I'll have it finished in the new year. Is optimistic, I think. But we have a lot of drills that lead to this. I think one of the things that's important to say is just have distractors out in all of your searches, all of them, not particularly container searches, all of them. Take your treat pouch and put it on a table in the middle of your search area and make the dog work through that. Now, that's very useful, and we've been doing that in a lot of my classes recently. But reading them is another important key, and that's what I told people. Is like food typically looks different than a hide, but some dogs figure out, well, hey, I can get some communication from my handler. Maybe I get them to step in and feed me. So some dogs try to play that angle, which sounds like your dog's doing a little bit. Maybe you just call it early or something. And I do think building odor obedience is key here, but I think maybe one of your mistakes is, or not a mistake. That's the wrong way of looking at it, but it's insufficient to just pay better. Because you could pay all day long, and the distraction can still be tempting to the dog. And so what you need to do is not pay better necessarily, but pay in the face of a distraction. So have the dog make the right choice and then pay. That's the key part, is that teaching them paying attention to distraction gets you nothing, paying attention to odor gets you something, and something good. It has to be good enough for the dog to do it.
Sometimes we play with them, like trying to incite them to return to the distractor, and they'll often go and check it, and then nothing happens, and then they go back to odor, and then they get paid.
Yeah.
And like Michael said, having distractors in non-container searches can be great, and then you can get more repetition on that direct choice between the distractor and odor, and getting.
That's
to
what you're trying to reward, is the choice, not the odor. Actually, in this case, we're not rewarding source, we're not rewarding odor. We are, but not really. We're rewarding the choice to not pay attention to distractor.
And what I see can sometimes happen if you can get this right is that when the dog catches the distraction, they will
Yes.
turn and look for the odor because
It
the
becomes a
distraction has
precue.
become-
Yes.
which is great because
Yes.
then you really know the dog has internalized this learning.
Yeah. So now playing around with the box being a reward in itself. It might be. You need to be aware of this. You need to pay attention. So I would, in general, if your box is secure and the dog is not going to break into the box, and if you don't have boxes like that, I would recommend you get one. A cat crate or a regular crate is perfect. Put your food in there and then have boxes all around it with odor, some with odor maybe, or not even boxes. It could just be something. Just put your food distraction in a crate and let the dog go to town. Pour yourself a glass of wine. Set a timer. See how long it takes for your dog to give up on that strategy and finally go to the odor. Let's say it takes 20 minutes. Great. Tomorrow, let's see how long it takes. Does it take 10 minutes? Does it take 20 minutes again? Does it take 30 minutes? I will bet you your dog gets better and better through each exposure without you doing anything. Sit in a chair and just wait for science, okay? If it's not getting better after a few days, a few repetitions, and you have to truly be patient and be totally content with your dog wasting all that time. If it doesn't get better in a few days, then we can say, okay, maybe something about this behavior is self-reinforcing. I think you have a terrier, and I think if your dog is scratching might be self-reinforcing to terriers in particular. So in that case, I will treat it the same as a potty area distraction. So I see my dog is paying attention to critter. So they go to let's say they go to the crate and they want the food. I count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. If they haven't left, I detach the dog physically from the object. I wait for them to sit. I wait for 3 seconds again, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and I send them back to search. If they go right back to the crate, I repeat that process over and over again until the dog makes a different choice. They will make a different choice.
Sometimes it takes more repetitions than you think, but they will make a different choice.
I did this recently in a class, and I had one student sitting there. I'm sure she felt like it was an hour, and I'm sure it was actually more like 30 seconds or a minute. But, the dog was just staring at the food, and we just waited the dog out, and she was patient, and the dog succeeded, and the dog had a big light bulb moment. I'm not going to pay attention to that. It was just a loose bowl of food, too. The dog was on leash, but it was just a bowl of food. It wasn't even protected. And the dog said, no, I don't need that. I figured it out. I need to go to the odor.
Yes. And if you're playing around with less protected food, you have to be very careful that the dog doesn't end up eating it. And I think another really valuable thing about working on distractions that aren't in containers is that you're not, while they're learning it, you're not having a bunch of repetitions of them going, oh, but can be food in boxes. Oh, and maybe I can get into it, and maybe I should be more distractive and all this stuff. You can remove it a little bit from the context.
Not to mention, there's something about boxes in particular that leads people to, like you mentioned, leading her to the next box. But leads people trying to take over the search and direct them to a box. Whereas if you do it in an interior and exterior and you go off leash even, you're less tempted to direct the dog. And that's kind of the next question you asked, where how do I ignore that without leading her to the next box? Well, don't lead her. That's not advice for trial.
Right.
In trial, once you've established this is distraction, move her on to the next box.
Yeah, don't let her destroy the box.
No, just move her on.
Yeah.
That's fine with that.
But yeah, in practice, you have to just force yourself to not lead the dog on.
Yes.
But like he was saying, you can do the exercise where you take them away from it and you let them go again, but that's not leading them anywhere.
And
it's just restarting them.
And on top of that, in training, okay, you said, okay, you fell for not noticing. So if she's on a distractor, you say, how do I ignore that? Don't ignore it. Sit there and watch it and observe it. This is your opportunity to observe your dog's behavior on distractions. So the longer your dog spends there, the more opportunity you have to observe it. So relish it, cherish it, because pretty soon your dog's not going to pay attention to distractions and you're not going to get that opportunity again.
Yeah. And don't, visually disconnect from them. Don't turn away. Just pleasantly observe until either they move on or you have to restart them because they become destructive or, whatever you have to do. But sometimes people really think that if they don't look at the dog's going to understand. But they're not.
Yes. I told a group recently, they were like, oh, when the dog's on a distractor or doing this or that, should I look at the dog or not look at the dog? And I'm like, just don't be weird. It's a weird thing. I see 90% of people follow both of those pieces of advice where they're like, don't look at the dog. And so the dog gets on a distraction. They're like this. And it's like, and now the dog is like super intrigued. Like, why are you being so weird? And then you get the advice of look at the dog, and they're like staring holes through the dog. Just be normal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you do. The dog has to make the choice. This
Yeah.
is not about you. It's about the dog.
Yeah, but if you need to like give yourself a mental picture or something, just imagine there is nothing in the container. Just as any of the other containers they could be sniffing, nothing in there. Yeah. And, you know, I think for some dogs, overemphasizing working on food distractions and boxes can make them more intrigued with
Yes.
looking for the food distractions and boxes.
You create the problem you're trying to avoid.
Yes, but if you already have it, then you have to push through, along with working on it outside of containers. But you know, you do have to directly address that if they have created interest in behaviors and all that.
I agree.
And also, this may not be the case in your practice, but I think a lot of the time in trials, some of the interest dogs are showing on the food distraction containers are pooling, are slobber. So it's not always cut and dry. I mean, maybe you know the way your dog was acting. It was 100% they were totally focused on the food. But that isn't always the case. And so, you know, remember those other components as well. Work on pooling on containers, work on slobber on containers.
Agreed.
Okay, on to the next one.
Sure.
Okay. Is it possible to do too much pairing? I feel like he immediately goes to odor and then drops his head looking for cheese and then leaves. And there was a particular video she sent me that we can look at if you want to.
Oh, sure. Send it to me.
But I think that's also, you know, a very general question.
Yeah, the general question, yes, in multiple dimensions, you can do too much pairing. But the main dimension that people do too much pairing is that they, what's the word I'm looking for? That they use too much food. And so it overshadows the odor. So I would say that's probably the first thing to look at is make sure that you're using the smallest and least smelly piece of food that your dog will recognize as a treat. The dog should not be a crumb where the dog like goes, what the hell is this? But it should be a big enough treat that says, ooh, yum, but not so big.
Like crumble.
Yes. And this is also why I kind of like using stronger odor, because stronger odor is less likely to be overshadowed by distraction. Now, if you're pairing, that's important. If you're not pairing, that becomes less important. Okay, let's watch your video real quick, and then I'll tell you more thoughts about overusing pairing. Is this a competition video or a training video?
I think it's a training video.
Okay. Turn it down a little bit.
And her interpretation is that he may be looking for if there's cheese there on those files. I think there are potential other interpretations, but we can talk about those later. And then he works his way back into it with more determination and focus at the end. But he's still looking a lot down. There it is right there.
Okay, yeah, to me, that doesn't look like pairing too much problem. Because here's the hide. I'm pretty sure you're not pairing on the ground below the hide. You're pairing up here with the hide.
So I specifically asked, and she said sometimes he knocks it off. So that could be creating the looking on the ground?
It doesn't create looking on the ground because he needs to knock it off first before it gets on the ground. But
generally speaking,
one of the things I would recommend you do, because this happens all the time at trial, whether you pair or don't pair, because other teams are dropping food and drooling on the ground, is to put distractions below hides. Mm-hmm. And that basic distraction could be take your hands, put them in your treat pouch, and rub the ground underneath the hide. And just teach the dog to work through that and teach them to use it almost as a clue. Like when he smells that there, the first thought should be, I should check here because I'll bet you there's a hide here instead of running off to some new area.
Yeah, like kind of like we were talking about with containers. But also probably there's a lot of odor collecting down in there. And he's moving very quickly. And maybe he's moving a little too fast. I mean, I know he slows and checks it, but maybe mentally he wants to kind of check out the area. Yes. Maybe it's almost closer to cataloging in the moment. maybe not related to pairing. But I think, if you have a suspicion that your dog is over reliant on the pairing, then I would definitely take some time without pairing.
Yeah, there's no harm in it, but I know for a fact your dog's not going to have a problem with that. I'll put money down on it. Your dog's not going to have any problem. This is a problem because it's a group setting and the dog is being intrigued by, I think, other dogs' smell underneath the hide.
And there's almost certainly, like with the shape of the space,
yes,
there's going to be a lot of drool.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not there are actual crumbs, there's probably enough to smell it.
I think what this tells me more than anything is that the dog catches an odor problem and then goes off looking for another odor problem. So what that tells me more than anything is maybe your dog is developing some mild cataloging, and so that's too many multiple hide problems. And that if the dog leaves a paired hide early, generally I would say that's because we're not supplementing with enough treats. And so maybe you might want to try to up your treat and stickiness game, like challenging the dog more at hides when he gets paid. A lot of people have to remind them every couple of months, because they get in the habit of the dog finds a hide and then they just wait for the dog to poke it 3 times and treat them each time. And it's like, really, that ritual should include challenge, clapping your hands, pulling the dog, doing something to distract the dog. Make the dog fight you for the hide instead of just like, give me a treat. Give me a treat. Give me a treat.
Give them a little
make them put out more
option
effort
to fight for it.
Yeah.
And another thing I think is worth saying is that, we pretty early in introducing dogs to odor do hides without food on them, like very early, because we want to make sure the dog fully understands
like
odor.
With our own dogs, the second day of introduction to odor, they are unpaired. They're getting at least one unpaired hide.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do a paired, unpaired, paired.
In our classes, it's the next class. So 1 week, every student is different. Some of those students didn't practice that whole week. Some of the students practiced every day that week. But either way, all of the dogs are getting an unpaired experience, and they're all pretty much succeeding.
Yeah. And if they don't, it's usually for some other reason, like the odor isn't as available.
Or the dog is temperamentally not as sound as the other dogs.
Yeah. And different dogs do take different amounts of time to acquire odor. But usually they'll just check it out of interest, even if they don't fully understand it yet. But I think not everyone does early introductions of unpaired. And so you do need to make sure that that you have, I don't think that it's an actual issue. I think Caleb does truly understand odor.
Yeah.
But I think for anybody, you do want to make sure your dog is not relying on the treats to know how to source and when to source.
If I had any suspicion that my dog was relying on the food, they would not have a paired hide until I was convinced otherwise. But over time, the more I learn, the more I don't really think that happens as much as I thought it did. I learned that my dog doesn't have value for odor because I'm not paying well, or because they're distracted by some novel environment. And that's not really have anything to do with pairing.
Yeah, they want to do something else. There are lots of dogs who want to run around.
Yeah.
Or explore the area or something before they finish the problem.
Yeah. Most of our dogs end up at the point where you pair a hide and they find a hide and they don't even need to pair. They're just like, hey, pay me.
Yeah.
Which is weird. I don't necessarily try to teach that. They just develop that on their own.
Yeah. And you could also play with, anti-cataloging exercises.
Yes.
Like the running game and having somebody steal it if he's worked it and then left it. Yeah. I would do those sorts of things. And another thing, I think maybe you didn't say this, but I think another thing about pairing is that generally the dog is catching odor so much further from where they catch the treat that they are really working that odor for quite a while before they go, oh, and it's paired. So if your dog is getting to that point and they're going, oh, dang, it's not paired, then yeah, I think you have to bridge that gap of why are they actually concerned that it's not paired? It should be really in some ways neither here nor there, whether it's paired. Okay, moving on.
Sure.
Of course, give us any follow-up questions that you may have.
As always.
Whether or not you were the question asker, the chat is very, very quiet today.
Yes, don't forget, comment on YouTube, not on Facebook.
Oh yeah, we have not been checking today. So next one, building confidence in a dog who is uncomfortable in small spaces, tight areas, or clutter. I did a workshop recently with Michael, and he gave me tips to engage him by playing with toys. That has helped a lot in scent work in his rally and obedience trials. This past weekend, he encountered very tight, cluttered areas with wind blowing things, hitting walls, and an 8-foot Indian statue. He has been working very well other than those few situations. Stores don't seem to have enough tight, cluttered spaces to practice in. Well, you may not want to clutter up your own house, but if you can create some clutter, it would be interesting to see if he does better or the same at home with clutter and tight spaces. Also, have you worked all of the tight spaces you have access to, like your closets and bathroom and
Yes.
anywhere narrow that you have or could create in your house?
Or the inside of your car.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we do in classes very regularly, but or ever. But we could. But like working the inside of a car where you have to get in the car with the dog and work it off leash or something like that. It's fun, but it's crazy. It's something most people have never done. Maybe that should have been a challenge that I made in the group.
Yeah.
But I would say this: one of the best things I ever heard on this concept was from a trainer named Garrett Dyer. He's a cool trainer. He's out in like the Ohio area, and he said, "Well, your dog's outside in a crate right now, isn't he? Yeah. Okay. So you got your dog okay with one close space. So all you got to do is do the same thing in these ones." Yeah. And I think that's true. I think a lot of it has to do with comfort in tight spaces, like even outside of nose work. Mm-hmm. Could you put a hide inside of a crate and the dog find it? Could you put a hide inside of a crate with stuff in it and the dog still climb in there? And now take the nose work out of it. Go find somewhere with a really tight space and teach the dog to go in there as if it were a crate, under a bench, over something. Mm-hmm. Just find little tiny cubbies and teach the dog to go in them like they're a crate. And as the dog starts seeing these as fun opportunities to do this trick, then if there's an odor in there, it'll be even easier.
Yeah. And this is something I've been talking to the clutter in particular is something I've been talking to my classes a lot about over the last maybe 6 months. That, we pattern chairs, we pattern boxes, we pattern doorways. We should pattern clutter. Yes. In the same way. You want the dog to visually see clutter and go, that's a high priority area.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get myself in there. So it takes, the repetitions of hide setting and reinforcement. And, it's, as with anything in confidence, repetitions of not dying. So you just need the number of repetitions that dog needs to think that you can do it in novel environments. And
in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, what are your best locations and thoughts for small cluttered spaces? Where do you go to teach this concept? I already gave mine of doing the inside of a car. I know I've heard from other people to do like sometimes if you go to like Lowe's or Home Depot, they have those little sheds outside. You can go inside and work them. What else? Does anybody have some great places? I know parks, bathrooms. They're gross.
Depends. Some parks are better than others.
Yeah, but they can be tight.
It depends on how tight is wearing to your dog.
Yeah.
What's tight for one is not tight for another. And I also think there are a lot of dogs who actively avoid parts of their home that they're uncomfortable with. We just don't notice because it hasn't been relevant for whatever reason. If you can go when there aren't like a bunch of kids there, playgrounds can have really interesting like places to go
tunnels
under.
And
tunnels. Yeah. Sometimes
we have a tire park here where they can crawl under tires and inside of tires. Those are fun.
Yeah. Sometimes you can find like rock formation type places that have tighter openings.
But remember when you were a kid and you built a little pillow fort? Build a pillow fort for your dog.
That reminds me. Remember Rebel Pile is a really good way to work on this concept.
Rebel Pile, it's in our game book. I don't think I have a video lesson of it yet, but I'm planning on that. Remember when I hung those tarps from the thing and made the dogs climb through them? Yeah. Yes. So there's a picture of that somewhere. But anyways, yeah. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
What's next?
Okay, we do have a follow-up at Facebook, but we're going to continue where we are for now.
Okay.
Training for an ORT now. Should I keep boxes pristine? Keep used boxes that had odor separate from non-odor boxes? Once an odor box, always odor box. Asking because I had boxes a couple of months ago with AKC odor. They have not had odor for months. I used them as non-odor boxes yesterday. My dog alerted on those boxes. I didn't reward. Should I be training her that residual odor doesn't pay, or keep it simple until she is further along in her nose work training?
I think you only cripple the dog by waiting.
Now, I would, for me, it matters how you set the hide. If
Yes.
you set AKC Q-tips with 2 drops of oil on them and they
Like
were
directly
naked
on the-
your
yeah.
cardboard, that I would consider still hot.
Yeah, I probably would
If
agree
it
with that.
was within a scent vessel and it's just lingering, then I would put that in the lingering category and
Yeah.
not.
And I
worry about
would
that.
90% of the time I'm training containers and they're open.
Yes.
So the dog is not looking for boxes. They're looking for a tin inside of a box. And that's a great place to teach the dog the concept of residual odor.
Yeah.
And just move the tin from box to box.
Yeah, I would use that lingering concept in those lingering boxes
Yes.
within open.
And it will-
boxes most of the
It
time.
will transfer to closed boxes eventually. But I'm not like trying to go out of my way to present that picture to the dog necessarily, because I train boxes so infrequently that I'm not like trying to set this up. But I believe that my dogs can do that. And if they don't, I just treat it like they've hit any residual spot in any search area. I don't treat boxes special. Like dogs hit residual in vehicles and exteriors and interiors all the time too.
Yeah.
And you should handle it the same way and don't treat it differently because it's a container search.
But I do think that them being able to get their nose in the box and fully confirm there is not actually a source there
Mhm.
is a valuable part of the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good suggestion of rows of picnic benches. So at some parks, they're very, very close together. So that would be a great
Sometimes you can find an outdoor amphitheater. And those can be
Mhm.
a little tight sometimes.
thing. Sometimes.
Yeah. Bike rack. Oh, shopping cart racks at
Oh,
Walmart.
yes.
That's a nice one.
Yes. Or I like even
Or
somewhere
park
like,
2 cars close together and work the channel.
yes, one time we just parked our car really close to the garage
Yes.
and worked. You know, so you
That
didn't
was
even
a high
need 2
challenge.
cars. It was.
Yeah. So you guys can see that in the High Challenge group if you bought it. I don't remember what year it was.
Me neither. Sometimes someplace like Bass Pro has more cluttered areas than like a Lowe's or a Home Depot.
Yeah.
The clothing area tends to be like, I don't know
Quite
if they
narrow.
would get annoyed with you if you're putting hides in the clothing area, but
Yeah.
you know, you've got those rows of clothes together and then you had a hide like low on the base of the clothing rack and where the dog had to kind of push under that would be quite tight. And they probably have some other options there too, as
Yeah.
well as the
And if
cart
you're
set side.
traveling with your dogs and you're staying at hotels, utilize the hotels. Utilize the hallways. You utilize the bathroom in your hotel. And those tend to be a little tight.
Yes. And even the area like between the wall and the bed tends to be quite tight.
Yeah.
And this is someone who asked questions earlier who had a follow-up or an additional question. I'm also interested in your advice for those of us who handle small dogs. Does their small stature affect their timing and ability to get into an odor cone and source elevated hides? If yes, then what strategies can we employ to support them?
Yes, I do think it affects them, but in general, I think small dogs are better at elevation. Again, like I really think that to a small dog, the whole world is elevated, so they're practicing elevated a lot more than some of these bigger dogs. Not to mention, the standard of judging is lower for these small dogs as it is for big dogs. So I really think it's as silly as like Maggie has a lot of problems. Elevation's not one of them for her. I feel like she's quite solid on elevation, actually, in some ways.
Yeah. So I think one thing to keep in mind with elevation is, you know, the way that odor tends to fall when it's high, which varies. You know, it can be all the way from straight down to high for a long time and then dropping off. But if you think about this very like standard picture, the shorter the dog is, the further away they have to be to catch it at their height. And so sometimes what can happen is that people aren't letting the dog out for far enough or letting them explore enough for them to work it the way that a taller dog would be able to, because they would be at that same like odor height, much, much closer to the hide. I think, you know, practice is a big component. You can't, there's no substitute for mileage. And
yeah, you have to practice a certain amount of elevation. I know we teach our students not to overdo elevation because you can get really problematic guessing.
Yeah. But that's especially when you're setting stuff really high. If you can set something that is just at like the height of what their nose can reach, or just above what their nose can reach, and they can really know that it's there, but they're driving for it, you can do quite a bit of that without creating problematic guessing. If the dog can climb up things to get to source, that's a great way to do it. But yeah, doing a bunch of like 6 foot hides with a 1 foot dog, you're probably going to create problems.
So she's asking a follow-up question. So this adds to the time needed to identify source. No. There's 2 questions you're asking there in my mind. One is it going to take the dog longer to have the learning experience of really picking the right moment where they are identifying where it's coming from? And the second is it going to take me longer in a competition to call it? And is that unfair? I think
that's generally up to the handler.
I think it is unfair, but there's no such thing as fairness in nose work. I think that's normal.
Your dog's going to save time probably on some other problems.
But again, like Natalie said, that is quite up to the handler because you can call things quicker or slower based on your comfort level. The training part, is it going to take longer for a small dog to make a decision or to figure out where it is? In my experience, no. It's pure experience. Like the more experienced dogs are going to do better, and the less experienced are going to do worse. It's nothing to do with tall or short. Drive level matters a little bit. But yeah, like I've seen Great Danes take longer to solve than Chihuahuas. And it's purely experience level, confidence level, things like that.
And individuals, like one of the best elevation solvers I've ever known was a tiny little like Parsons Russell mix. Because he just understood it for some reason. And he would find hides consistently faster than the tall dogs in class. And even like one time there was something at like the ceiling of his house and he figured out within like less than a minute. Yeah. So, you know, I've also known dogs who really struggled with elevation.
Yes.
For various reasons. Sometimes dogs struggle with elevation for physical reasons. If they're having any like back or neck issues, they can have a much harder time with elevation. But, you know, barring anything like that, I think practice, making sure they're staying is really, really important.
She had a follow-up question here. In practice, should I lift the dog up so she can put her nose on the source? People have experimented with this. In general, I would say no. In general, I would say bringing the odor down to the dog, or at least the treat, making sure the dog knows where the treat is coming from. Like you took it from up here and brought it down to the dog. I think that's enough. That's the way pet dogs learn, is they want the food on the counter and you bring the food down from the counter to the dog. They learn very quickly that it's up on the counter. If you want to bring the dog up, I prefer creating a step ladder of sorts that the dog can climb up to get there themselves. But if you want to lift the dog up, there's not a thing wrong with that, but it's not my go-to strategy with my own dogs.
Well, and it depends on the dog because some dogs are very I sent it to you.
Oh, thank you.
Some dogs are very agitated by being picked up and will be really upset with you if you do that, and may be more upset about the whole working the high hide situation. But another dog may not mind it or like it. So
yes,
I would, if you play with it, I would
pay attention to your dog's attitude towards it. Yes.
Yeah. Don't make them more angry about elevation than necessarily.
Yes.
And we saw a video years ago. I think it was a Fred Helfer seminar of this. I think it was a cop in his black lab who was clearing a room, and he vacuumed
the drapes.
To the top of the drapes, and the dog's like,
now,
what are you doing?
I have to say this is a little different because he was trying to get the dog to search like that, as opposed to the dog already finding it and then lifting the dog up to make a connection to source.
Yes, those are two different situations, but still reminded me of that.
Good.
So we had one follow-up from the first question, which was, I've now been to 2 trials where everyone got a pass on a search because something went wrong. First, a level 1 vehicle. The hide apparently found out much later was wrong about where the hide was.
Oh, no.
We were an early team, got a no when we actually were correct. It really threw us for a loop as we were still very green. I wonder if you have advice for how to manage that. It was the first of 2 back-to-back searches, and we got so flustered we totally blew the next search. Can we ask for a moment in this situation, like let another team pass and go gather our wits?
I think, of course, you can. They may or may not give it to you. I think a better strategy is just to learn how to reset yourself. Like I don't remember how I worded this, but we did a couple sequential searches at a game day in California a long time ago. It was a class or something, and
Is it like accumulated stress or
maybe I don't know, but
something else?
she had a false in here, and then she came into the next search, and she was really nervous and made some weird calls. And I said, "Look, it's like flipping a coin. Like you got tails. That doesn't mean the next one's going to be heads. It doesn't mean the next one's going to be tails. Every coin flip is a brand new 50-50 chance. And you can't treat the next search based on what happened in the last search. It's like a new coin flip. It's a clean slate.
People always go the wrong way.
Yeah,
they swing way too far.
They do. So if you can try to find a way to teach yourself to clean slate between searches, that's fine. Now, I personally think this is a great experience for you. And it's been a great experience for a lot of my students. Eventually, you'll get to a trial where the judge says no, and you were right. The dog was right. And for most people, they find that a very empowering experience. Like, I should trust my dog more than I trust the judge. I love telling this story. There was an ORT. It was Ghost's ORT, actually. So many years ago. And she was in class with a bunch of other students who were going to go for the same ORT. So I had one of my students set up a mock ORT, and I said, I'll run it last so that everyone can watch me run it. And dog after dog comes out. I got a false. So they're all watching me. I send my dog to search. She falses, and everyone goes, that's the same box we falsed on. And I open the box, and there are the Q-tips right there. And the student's like, ah!
It was not me judging.
It wasn't. It was a student. But anyways, you'd think that's an awful experience before an ORT. It was probably the best experience I could have given my students. They were like, my dog did it. My dog knew. I should have trusted my dog like Michael did. He opened the box. Don't open the box at a trial, okay?
Yeah.
This is bad form. But it still gave my students a lot of confidence.
Yeah. And I know there have been a couple situations recently that one of our students has had where she did get a no from the judge that turned out to be incorrect. And then the CO came and found her and talked to her about it and whatever. And that can be really frustrating because you feel like you kind of let your dog down or whatever. But, stuff happens and dogs are super, super resilient. But I also know people who in that situation would just pay. Like if the dog gave them a super clear alert, they would just pay it and worry about the consequences of that later because, they don't want to have not paid the dog. So you have to decide what you think is sort of the better or worse of like which side you were wrong on. But the dogs can handle stuff going wrong a little bit and they're okay.
They are very forgiving.
They are. She said, that is the lesson I learned. Trust my dog. I was proud of her and felt badly she didn't get rewarded. Okay. Oh, and then we had a question in over here. With the holidays coming, what are the top nose work books you'd recommend as gifts? That's an interesting question.
Nose work books as gifts. So our game book, obviously, right? I didn't even think about it until right that moment. Yes, get them our game book. I'm working on a drill book too. That shouldn't be out by the holiday season though.
Maybe next year.
What else are good? So you can't find this book anymore, unfortunately. But they keep on the website. It keeps saying they're going to republish it. But the SWDI, SWDI, the Scandinavian Working Dog Institute, has a fantastic book on tracking dogs. Let me go see if I can find it. Show it to you because it's a very great book. Are there any books you like, Natalie?
I don't know. For whatever reason, I'm not the most book person in nose work. But if you haven't already read The Dog Driven Search, it's worth a read.
Yes, it's definitely an influential one. Tracking Dogs, Scent and Skills. I'm so glad I bought it. It's got beautiful illustrations in it. Look at that cute little, looks like an English setter puppy or something. Some nice Malinois.
I wonder why they haven't continued to publish it.
Look Look at those illustrations. Sorry. But anyways, it's actually a really good book. There's like the whole first third of the book is like basic learning theory and like how learning affects the dog. Then the majority of the book is about tracking. And then there's a section on scent detection. Now, this is not the method I teach my students. It is a rough approximation of the method I taught with Minnow. But I think the basic structure of the book is it's a good book and it's a pretty book. It sits on the shelf nicely.
Some of you read a lot more nose work related books than we do.
Yeah, please give recommendations.
Yes, give recommendations. At one point we had a book club, but then people weren't reading the books, so we stopped it. But
I guess book clubs are really supposed to be all wine, right? Why not just start a wine club?
There you go. Yes. Yes. I wish we didn't all live so far apart. It would be much easier to do something like a wine and book club. But yeah, or if anyone has any other Christmas gift recommendations related to nose work, like some new scent vessel that you love.
Yeah.
I know Nose and Hearts just put out their holiday collection, which has some fun stuff. But there are lots of different things. Maybe you want it. There's a new leash you've gotten that someone might want to ask their spouse to give them, or who knows what. So yeah. Good questions.
Anything else?
I think that's it, unless
Great.
I missed something.
So remind me one more time what you said the next NAMA date is.
December 29th.
December 29th.
5 p.m.
Have a good Thanksgiving, guys.
Yes, and Christmas, because the next NAMA is after Christmas.
Yes, and a good Christmas. Merry Christmas. So.
All right.
Fun set of questions.
Send your questions for next time.
See you guys.
Bye.